The desert heat pressed down on the compound like a heavy blanket. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her position behind the rocky outcrop, her rifle steady against her shoulder. Through her scope, she watched the terrorist compound 3,000 meters away. The mission was supposed to be simple. Get in position, provide overwatch for the SEAL team, and extract when they completed their objective. Maria had been doing this for 8 years. 8 years of being the best shot in her unit, 8 years of proving herself over and over again. Still, when she'd been assigned to this operation, she'd heard the whispers. The SEALs didn't think much of having a female sniper as their guardian angel. Ghost 2-1, this is Bravo 6, came the voice through her earpiece. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison's voice was calm and professional. We're beginning our approach. You have eyes on the compound? Copy, Bravo 6. I have visual on 6 tangos in the courtyard, 2 on the north tower, 1 on the south. Your path is clear for now, Maria replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She'd studied the SEAL team's files before the mission. Morrison was a legend among Special Operations Forces. 15 years of service, multiple deployments, countless successful operations. His team respected him completely. They called him Iron Jake because nothing seemed to rattle him. Through her scope, Maria watched the SEAL team move like shadows across the desert floor. They were good, she had to admit. Their movement was coordinated, silent, deadly. She tracked each team member as they approached the compound walls. The intelligence had been clear. High-value target inside, along with crucial information about upcoming terrorist attacks. The SEALs would breach, capture the target, and extract. Maria's job was to make sure nothing went wrong from the outside. Ghost 2-1, movement on your 3 o'clock, Morrison's voice crackled through the radio. Maria swung her scope to the right. A patrol of 4 insurgents was walking along the ridgeline, heading straight for her position. They hadn't seen her yet, but, in 5 minutes, they would walk right into her. I see them, Bravo 6. For tangos, approximately 500 meters out. I can handle them quietly if needed. Negative, Ghost 2-1. Maintain position. We need you watching our backs. Maria frowned. She could take out the patrol without alerting the compound. For quick shots, and the threat would be eliminated. But Morrison wanted her to stay put. She understood the tactical reasoning, but it meant she'd have to relocate soon. The SEAL team reached the compound wall. Maria watched through her scope as they placed charges on the gate. Everything was going according to plan. Then, she saw movement that made her blood run cold. Bravo 6, you have incoming vehicles from the east. 3 trucks, approximately 2 kilometers out and closing fast. Copy that. How long until they reach us? Maria did quick calculations in her head. 8 minutes, maybe 10 if they hit the rough terrain. Roger. We need 5 minutes inside. Ghost 2-1, can you slow them down? This was it. This was why she was here. Maria shifted her position, tracking the lead vehicle through her scope. The range was extreme, even for her. Most snipers wouldn't attempt a shot at moving targets at this distance. But Maria wasn't most snipers. She controlled her breathing, felt her heartbeat slow. The crosshairs settled on the lead truck's engine block. She squeezed the trigger. The .338 Lapua Magnum round covered the distance in less than 3 seconds. Maria watched through her scope as the lead truck's engine exploded in a cloud of steam and smoke. The vehicle swerved off the road and crashed into a ditch. The other 2 trucks stopped immediately. Men poured out, taking cover behind the vehicles. They were scanning the horizon, trying to figure out where the shot had come from. Good shooting, Ghost 2-1, Morrison's voice came through the radio. That bought us some time. But Maria's attention was now divided. The patrol she'd spotted earlier was getting closer to her position, and the men from the trucks were starting to move toward the compound on foot. She had multiple threats to track. Through her earpiece, she could hear the sounds of the SEAL team's assault. Flashbangs, automatic weapon fire, shouted commands. The breach was underway. Contact! Contact! Morrison's voice suddenly filled the radio, tense for the first time. We've got more tangos than expected. Ghost 2-1, we need fire support on the north tower, now. Maria swung her rifle toward the compound. Two insurgents were setting up a heavy machine gun on the North Tower. If they got that weapon operational, they could pin down the entire SEAL team. The range was challenging, but manageable. Maria settled her crosshairs on the first gunner. She squeezed the trigger, and the man dropped. His partner dove for cover, but Maria was already tracking him. Her second shot found its mark. "North Tower clear," she reported. "Outstanding shooting," came Morrison's reply. "We're inside the main building." Proceeding to the objective. Maria continued her overwatch, scanning for threats. The patrol was now only 200 meters from her position. She had to make a decision. Stay and risk being discovered, or relocate and temporarily lose visual on the SEAL team. She chose to stay. Her job was protecting the team, even if it meant exposing herself to danger. Minutes passed like hours. Through her radio, she could hear the SEAL team moving through the building, clearing rooms, searching for their target. Then, Morrison's voice came through, excited but controlled. "Ghost 2-1, we have the package." "Repeat, we have the package." Moving to extraction point Alpha. Maria felt a surge of relief. The mission was almost over. She watched through her scope as the SEAL team emerged from the compound, their high-value target in tow. They moved quickly but carefully toward the extraction point. That's when everything went wrong. The patrol that had been approaching Maria's position suddenly opened fire. Not at her, but at the compound. They had radio communication with the insurgents inside, and they were directing fire at the SEAL team's exit route. "Bravo 6, you have accurate fire coming from the ridgeline. For shooters, approximately 400 meters northeast of your position. We're taking heavy fire, Ghost 2-1. Can you suppress them?" Maria didn't hesitate. She began engaging the patrol members one by one. Her first shot took down their leader. The second dropped their radio operator. The remaining two dove for cover, but Maria kept them pinned down. But while she was dealing with the patrol, she hadn't noticed movement from the crashed trucks. The insurgents had regrouped and were moving toward the compound in a flanking maneuver. "Bravo 6, you have additional tangos moving in from the east. 8 to 10 fighters, they'll reach your position in 3 minutes." Morrison's voice came back strained. "We're moving as fast as we can, but our package is wounded. He can't move quickly." Maria's mind raced. The SEAL team was trapped between the compound and the approaching insurgents. Their extraction point was compromised. She had to do something. She began engaging the flanking force, picking off targets as they moved across the open ground. Her shots were precise, deadly. But there were too many of them, and they were spreading out. "Ghost 2-1, this is Bravo 6. We're going to need immediate extraction. Our route to Alpha is compromised." "Copy that. I'm moving to a better position to cover extraction point Bravo." Maria quickly broke down her position and began moving. She had to get closer to provide effective support for the alternate extraction point. As she moved, she could hear the intensity of the firefight increasing. The extraction helicopter was still 10 minutes out. The SEAL team had to hold their position until then, and Maria had to make sure they could do it. She reached a new firing position just as the main group of insurgents reached the compound. Through her scope, she could see muzzle flashes from inside the buildings. The SEALs were surrounded. "Bravo 6, what's your status?" "We're holding, but barely. We've got wounded, and we're running low on ammunition." Maria's blood ran cold. "How bad are the wounded?" There was a pause before Morrison replied. "It's the commander. He took one in the chest. We need immediate medical evacuation." The commander. Morrison himself was hit. Maria felt a surge of determination. These men were counting on her. She couldn't let them down. She began systematic fire on the compound, targeting any insurgent who showed himself. Her shots were precise, deadly effective. One by one, she eliminated threats to the SEAL team. But, as she fired, she realized she was running low on ammunition herself. She had maybe 10 rounds left. After that, she'd be down to her sidearm. The sound of rotor blades filled the air. The extraction helicopter was approaching. But the landing zone was still hot, still under fire from multiple positions.
Ghost 2-1, this is Eagle Flight. We need the LZ clear for landing.
Maria surveyed the situation.
There were at least 6 insurgents in positions that could fire on the helicopter during landing and takeoff. She had to eliminate them all with her remaining ammunition.
She took a deep breath and began the most important shooting of her career.
6 targets, 10 rounds. She couldn't miss. Her first shot dropped an insurgent on the compound's roof. Her second took out a fighter behind a wall. Third shot, fourth shot, fifth shot. Each one found its mark. With her 9th round, she eliminated the last major threat. LZ is clear, Eagle Flight. Move in now.
The helicopter touched down in a whirlwind of dust and noise. Maria watched through her scope as the SEAL team rushed their wounded commander toward the aircraft. But, as they moved, one last insurgent appeared from hiding, rifle aimed at Morrison.
Maria had 1 round left.
The target was partially concealed, the shot was difficult, and, if she missed, Morrison would die. She steadied her breathing, found her target through the scope, and squeezed the trigger for the last time. The insurgent dropped just as Morrison reached the helicopter. All aboard, Eagle Flight.
Get us out of here.
As the helicopter lifted off, Maria finally allowed herself to relax.
The mission was complete.
The high-value target was captured, and, despite everything going wrong, the entire SEAL team was alive. But, as she watched the helicopter disappear into the distance, she wondered if Morrison would survive his wounds. And she wondered if the SEAL team would ever know that their lives had been saved by the female sniper they'd initially doubted. Maria packed her gear and began the long trek to her own extraction point.
In a few hours, she'd be back at base, writing her after-action report.
The SEAL team would probably never know the full extent of what she'd done for them today.
But she knew. And that was enough.
As she walked through the desert, Maria reflected on the mission.
Everything had gone wrong that could go wrong.
Multiple enemy contacts, wounded personnel, compromised extraction routes.
But, somehow, they'd all made it out alive. That was what mattered.
That was what she'd trained for all these years. Not for recognition or praise, but for moments like this. Moments when her skills meant the difference between life and death for her fellow warriors. The sun was beginning to set as Maria reached her extraction point. Soon, a helicopter would come to take her home. But, for now, she sat in the fading light, her rifle across her knees, and allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She'd done her job. She'd brought everyone home alive. And, tomorrow, she'd be ready to do it again. 3 weeks later, Maria Santos walked through the corridors of the Naval Special Warfare Command headquarters in Coronado, California. Her dress uniform was crisp, her medals properly aligned, but she felt out of place among the polished hallways and administrative offices. She preferred the field, where her skills mattered more than paperwork and protocols.
The summons had been unexpected. Report to Admiral Richardson's office for debriefing and operational review.
Maria had submitted her after-action report weeks ago, had been debriefed by intelligence officers, and had assumed the Afghanistan mission was closed. Now, apparently, there were more questions. She knocked on the Admiral's door and heard a gruff enter from inside. Admiral Richardson was a lean man with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. He gestured for Maria to sit while he finished reading a thick folder on his desk. After several minutes, he looked up. "Staff Sergeant Santos," he said, his voice neutral.
"I've been reviewing your performance on Operation Desert Falcon. Interesting reading." "Thank you, sir. I was just doing my job." The Admiral leaned back in his chair. 37 confirmed kills in a single operation. Multiple successful engagements at extreme range.
Tactical decision-making that saved the lives of an entire SEAL team.
That's not just doing your job, Sergeant. That's exceptional performance.
Maria remained silent. She'd learned long ago that in situations like this, it was better to listen than to speak.
"I've also been reviewing some personnel files," the Admiral continued.
"It seems there were some initial concerns about your assignment to this operation. Some members of the Special Operations community weren't convinced that a female sniper could handle this level of responsibility."
Now Maria understood.
This wasn't just about her performance review. This was about the broader question of women in special operations roles. She'd been fighting this battle her entire career. Sir, I've always focused on proving my capabilities through performance rather than arguing about policy.
Admiral Richardson nodded approvingly. Good answer. And, your performance has been noted. The question now is what comes next.
Before Maria could ask what he meant, there was another knock on the door. The Admiral called out "Enter," and Maria turned to see who was joining the meeting. Her breath caught in her throat. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison walked into the office, moving carefully but under his own power. His left arm was in a sling, and she could see the outline of bandages beneath his dress uniform, but he was alive and mobile.
Commander Morrison, Admiral Richardson said, standing. Thank you for joining us. I believe you know Staff Sergeant Santos. Morrison looked at Maria with an expression she couldn't quite read. We haven't been formally introduced, sir. But I owe her my life. The Admiral gestured for Morrison to sit. Why don't you tell Sergeant Santos about your recovery, Commander?
Morrison settled into his chair, wincing slightly. The bullet collapsed my lung and nicked a major artery. The doctor said if the extraction had taken even 5 minutes longer, I would have bled out.
5 minutes, Sergeant. That's how close it was. Maria felt a tightness in her chest.
She'd known Morrison was wounded, but she hadn't realized how serious it was. The thing is, Morrison continued, my team and I didn't understand at the time just how much you'd done for us.
We knew you'd provided excellent overwatch and fire support.
But it wasn't until we got the full intelligence debrief that we learned the scope of your actions.
Admiral Richardson opened the folder on his desk. Sergeant Santos, you eliminated 43 enemy combatants during that operation.
You disrupted 2 separate flanking maneuvers. You neutralized a heavy weapons position that would have killed the entire SEAL team. And you did all of this while managing ammunition conservation that would have challenged snipers with twice your experience. Maria shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Sir, I was in an overwatch position. I had good visibility and clear fields of fire. The SEAL team was doing the dangerous work inside the compound.
Morrison leaned forward. That's where you're wrong, Sergeant. We had no idea how dangerous our situation really was. The intelligence briefing showed that the compound had been reinforced with additional fighters just hours before our operation.
Instead of 12 to 15 enemy combatants, we were facing over 60.
The numbers don't lie, Admiral Richardson added.
Without your intervention, Operation Desert Falcon would have resulted in the complete loss of a SEAL team and the escape of a high-value target who was planning attacks on American soil.
Maria absorbed this information silently.
She'd known the situation was bad, but she hadn't realized just how outnumbered the SEAL team had been.
There's something else, Morrison said.
My team and I would like to know if you'd be interested in a permanent assignment with Naval Special Warfare.
Maria's eyes widened. This was unexpected. Sir, I'm Army. I'm not sure how that would work. Admiral Richardson smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Inter-service transfers can be arranged for personnel with exceptional qualifications.
Your record speaks for itself, Sergeant. Multiple deployments, expert marksmanship ratings, advanced tactical training, and now proven performance in high-stress special operations scenarios. The SEAL teams have been discussing expanding our sniper capabilities, Morrison added. We need people who can operate independently, make critical decisions under pressure, and adapt to rapidly changing tactical situations.
You've demonstrated all of those qualities. Maria's mind raced. A permanent assignment with the SEALs would be an incredible opportunity.
It would also mean leaving behind everything familiar about her military career.
Sir, may I ask what my team thinks about this recommendation? Morrison exchanged a look with Admiral Richardson. That's actually an interesting story. When we first learned about your assignment to our operation, there were some concerns expressed.
Not about your qualifications on paper, but about whether you could handle the physical and mental demands of supporting special operations.
Maria had heard these concerns before.
In her 8 years of military service, she'd faced skepticism from colleagues who questioned whether women belonged in combat roles, particularly in the specialized world of military snipers. Those concerns were misplaced, Morrison continued. My team has specifically requested that any future operations include you as our sniper support.
They've seen what you can do under pressure. Admiral Richardson pulled out another document. I have a letter here, signed by every member of Morrison's team, recommending you for the Navy Cross. They've also submitted a formal request for your permanent assignment to their unit. The Navy Cross. Maria knew that was one of the highest decorations for valor that could be awarded. Only the Medal of Honor ranked higher. I don't understand, sir. I was doing my job. Any qualified sniper would have made the same decisions. Morrison shook his head. That's where you're wrong, Sergeant. I've worked with dozens of snipers over the years. Good ones, excellent ones, some of the best in the world. What you did in Afghanistan went beyond technical skill. You made tactical decisions that saved lives, and you did it while managing multiple threats and limited resources. The shot that saved my life, Morrison continued, was taken at a range of 800 meters, through a sandstorm, at a partially concealed target who was moving. Our intelligence analysis shows you had approximately 2 seconds to identify the threat, acquire the target, and take the shot. Most snipers wouldn't have attempted it. Maria remembered that final shot vividly. The insurgent appearing from cover, rifle aimed at Morrison as he moved toward the helicopter. The split-second decision to risk everything on one last round. I couldn't let you die, sir. Not after everything the team had been through. Admiral Richardson made notes on a document. That kind of decision-making under extreme stress is exactly what Special Operations Forces need. The question is whether you're interested in making this your permanent assignment. Maria considered the offer. Working with the SEALs would mean more challenging missions, better resources, and the opportunity to work with some of the most elite soldiers in the world. It would also mean leaving behind her current unit, where she'd built relationships and established herself as a trusted team member. Sir, if I may ask, what would my role be with the SEAL teams? Morrison answered immediately. You'd be assigned to my unit as our primary sniper. You'd receive additional training in maritime operations, advanced reconnaissance techniques, and specialized weapons systems. You'd participate in all of our operations, not just provide overwatch support. The training program is 18 months, Admiral Richardson added. It's demanding, both physically and mentally. Not everyone who starts the program finishes it. Maria straightened in her chair. Challenges didn't intimidate her. They motivated her. What about the rest of the team? How do they really feel about working with a female operator? Morrison's expression grew serious. I'll be honest with you, Sergeant. Some of them had reservations initially. The special operations community has been slow to accept women in combat roles. But, after Afghanistan, those reservations have been replaced by respect. They've seen what you can do, Admiral Richardson said. That's worth more than any policy directive or political statement. You've earned their trust through performance. Maria thought about her current assignment. She was respected in her unit, but she was also limited by conventional military structures. Working with Special Operations Forces would give her opportunities to use her skills in ways that could make a real difference. If I accept this assignment, what happens to my current unit? They'll receive a replacement, Admiral Richardson replied. Someone with your qualifications and experience. Your commanding officer has already been briefed on this possibility. Actually, Morrison interjected, Colonel Peterson specifically said he'd hate to lose you, but he understands the opportunity this represents. He said you've been wasted in a conventional role. That surprised Maria. Colonel Peterson had always been supportive, but she hadn't realized he'd felt she was underutilized. There's one more thing, Admiral Richardson said, pulling out a final document. If you accept this assignment, you'll be promoted to Sergeant First Class immediately, with the possibility of further advancement based on performance. A promotion. Better pay, more responsibility, and official recognition of her capabilities. But, more than that, it would be validation that her years of hard work and dedication had been noticed by senior leadership. Maria made her decision. Sir, I accept the assignment. When do I start training? Morrison smiled broadly. Outstanding. You report to Coronado for pre-training assessment next Monday. Be prepared for the most challenging 18 months of your military career. Admiral Richardson stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Sergeant Santos, or should I say Sergeant First Class Santos, congratulations. You're about to become part of an elite brotherhood that few ever have the opportunity to join. As Maria stood to leave, Morrison approached her. "There's something else I wanted to tell you personally. My wife and daughters know what you did for me in Afghanistan. They asked me to thank you for bringing me home."
Maria felt her throat tighten with emotion.
"Sir, I'm just glad you're okay. Because of you, I am.
And, because of you, a lot of other people are going to make it home safe from future operations." Walking out of Admiral Richardson's office, Maria felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She was about to embark on the most challenging phase of her military career. But she was also about to join an elite community that would push her to become the best operator she could be. As she made her way through the corridors of Naval Special Warfare Command, Maria reflected on how much her life was about to change. In a few days, she'd begin training alongside some of the most elite warriors in the world. The work would be dangerous, demanding, and often thankless. But it was exactly what she'd been preparing for her entire career. The doubt and skepticism she'd faced over the years had made her stronger, more determined to prove herself through performance rather than politics. Now, finally, she was being given the opportunity to operate at the highest levels of military special operations. Maria Santos was ready for the challenge. The alarm clock screamed at 0400 hours, but Maria Santos was already awake. She'd been lying in her narrow bunk for the past hour, mentally preparing for what would be the most grueling day of training yet. Week 12 of the Special Operations Sniper program, and the instructors had saved the worst for near the end. Outside her barracks window, the California coast was still dark. In 2 hours, she'd be in the Pacific Ocean with the rest of her training class, conducting a simulated hostage rescue operation. The scenario was designed to test everything they'd learned about maritime operations, precision shooting, and working under extreme stress. Maria rose quietly and began her pre-dawn routine. Physical training, weapons maintenance, gear inspection, and mental preparation. After 3 months of intensive training, these activities had become as natural as breathing. The Special Operations Sniper program was unlike anything she'd experienced in her military career. The physical demands were extreme, but the mental challenges were even more intense. Every day brought new scenarios designed to push trainees beyond their comfort zones. Of the 24 soldiers who'd started the program, only 16 remained. 8 had been dropped for various reasons: inability to meet physical standards, failure to adapt to maritime environments, or simply cracking under the constant pressure. Maria had survived every cut so far, but she knew the final weeks would be the most challenging. At 0500 hours, she joined the other trainees in the briefing room. Instructor Chief Petty Officer Williams stood at the front, his weathered face serious as always. Williams was a legend in the SEAL community, with over 20 years of special operations experience. He didn't give praise lightly, and he had no patience for weakness. "Today's exercise is called Precision Rescue," Williams announced. "You'll be inserted by boat onto a simulated oil rig platform. Your mission is to neutralize 6 hostile targets and rescue 2 hostages without causing collateral damage." Maria studied the photographs of the training platform. It was a complex structure with multiple levels, providing numerous hiding places for both threats and hostages. The shooting angles would be challenging, and there would be no room for error. "The twist," Williams continued, "is that you'll be working in pairs. 1 shooter, 1 spotter. You'll have to coordinate your actions perfectly, because each target must be eliminated simultaneously. Miss your timing by even a second, and the hostages die." Maria felt her stomach tighten. Working with a partner added an entirely new level of complexity. She'd spent her entire career operating independently, making her own decisions and relying on her own skills. Now she'd have to trust someone else completely. "Santos," Williams called out. "You're partnered with Petty Officer Reynolds." Maria looked across the room at Tom Reynolds, a Navy SEAL with 5 years of combat experience. She'd worked with him on several training exercises, and, while he was technically proficient, they'd never developed the kind of seamless communication that effective sniper teams required. Reynolds nodded at her, his expression neutral. Maria knew he was probably thinking the same thing she was. This partnership could make or break their chances of graduating from the program. After the briefing, the trainees were transported to the harbor where a fast patrol boat waited. The Pacific Ocean was rough, with 4-foot swells that would make shooting from an unstable platform even more challenging. During the boat ride, Maria and Reynolds reviewed the mission plan. They'd identified their target assignments, established communication protocols, and discussed contingency plans.
But Maria could sense tension between them.
"Look," Reynolds said quietly as they approached the training platform. "I know we haven't worked together much, but I need you to trust my calls on target identification. I've got more experience with hostage situations." Maria bristled at the implication. "My experience might be different, but it's just as valid. In Afghanistan, I dealt with situations where civilian casualties weren't acceptable." "This is different," Reynolds replied. "Maritime operations have their own unique challenges." "Then, let's focus on working together instead of establishing who's more qualified," Maria said firmly. The patrol boat pulled alongside the training platform, and the sniper teams prepared to board. Each pair would take a different position on the structure, providing multiple angles of fire. The exercise was designed to simulate a real hostage rescue, where coordination between multiple sniper teams was critical. Maria and Reynolds climbed onto the platform and moved to their assigned position on the upper level. From here, they had clear lines of sight to most of the target areas. But the platform was swaying in the ocean swells, making stable shooting positions difficult to maintain. "Range cards," Reynolds said, pulling out his spotting scope. They spent the next 20 minutes identifying distances to various points on the platform, creating reference points they could use during the engagement. Through her scope, Maria could see role players positioning themselves throughout the structure. Some were designated as hostiles, others as hostages. The challenge was identifying which was which under stress, then making precise shots that neutralize threats without endangering innocents. "Control, this is Team 3. Ready for exercise commencement," Reynolds spoke into his radio. "Copy, Team 3. Exercise begins in 60 seconds. All teams report ready status." Maria adjusted her rifle, compensating for the platform's movement. The .308 Winchester she was using was different from her usual rifle, requiring her to adapt her shooting technique. After 3 months of training, she'd become proficient with multiple weapon systems, but each one had its own characteristics. Exercise commence," came the announcement over the radio. Immediately, the scenario sprang to life. Role players began moving throughout the platform, some carrying weapons, others acting as hostages. Maria and Reynolds had to identify legitimate targets quickly while avoiding civilian casualties. "Tango 1, second level, northeast corner," Reynolds called out. "Armed male, no hostages in proximity." Maria found the target through her scope. "Armed insurgent role player, clearly marked as a legitimate threat." She tracked him as he moved across a catwalk. Target acquired. Ready to engage. Tango 2, ground level, behind the containers, Reynolds continued his spotting. Female, armed, one hostage approximately 2 meters to her left. This target was more challenging. The hostile was close to a hostage, requiring a precise shot that would eliminate the threat without endangering the innocent. "I see her. Clean shot available if she moves 3 feet to her right. All teams, this is control. Synchronized engagement in 30 seconds. Mark your targets." Maria had identified her primary target, but the shot required perfect timing. If any sniper team engaged too early or too late, the exercise would be declared a failure. "Team 3 ready," Reynolds reported. 15 seconds, came the countdown. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, execute. Maria squeezed her trigger. Through her scope, she watched her target go down cleanly. Around the platform, she could hear other rifles firing as the coordinated engagement unfolded. "Good shot," Reynolds confirmed. "Target down, hostage safe." But the exercise wasn't over. Additional role players were emerging from concealment, representing reinforcements arriving at the scene. Maria and Reynolds had to continue engaging threats while protecting hostages and coordinating with other teams. "Multiple tangos, east side," Reynolds called out. 3 armed males, moving toward the hostage holding area. Maria swung her rifle toward the new threats. The platform's movement made tracking difficult, but she'd learned to time her shots with the swells. As the platform rose, she acquired her target. As it crested the wave, she fired. The engagement continued for another 10 minutes, with new threats appearing regularly. Maria and Reynolds fell into a rhythm, communicating efficiently and engaging targets with increasing coordination.
Finally, the exercise concluded with the successful rescue of both hostages and the neutralization of all hostile threats.
As the role players stood up and began clearing the platform, Maria felt a mixture of relief and accomplishment. "Not bad for a soldier," Reynolds said with a slight smile. "Not bad for a sailor," Maria replied, returning the smile. During the boat ride back to base, Maria reflected on the exercise. She and Reynolds had overcome their initial friction and worked together effectively. More importantly, she'd proven to herself that she could adapt to the unique demands of maritime special operations.
That evening, the training class gathered for the after-action review.
Instructor Williams went through each team's performance, highlighting both successes and areas for improvement. "Team 3, he said, looking at Maria and Reynolds. 97% accuracy, perfect timing on synchronized engagements, effective communication throughout the exercise." He paused. "Outstanding performance." Maria felt a surge of pride, but she kept her expression neutral.
Showing emotion during training was considered unprofessional. After the debrief, Williams approached Maria privately. "Santos, walk with me."
They stepped outside the briefing room, and Williams led her toward the harbor. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds. "You've been in this program for 3 months," Williams said. "What have you learned?"
Maria considered the question carefully. "I've learned that individual excellence isn't enough in special operations.
Everything depends on teamwork, communication, and trust."
Good answer. What else?
"I've learned that physical and technical skills are just the foundation.
Mental toughness and adaptability are what separate good operators from great ones." Williams nodded approvingly.
3 months ago, when you arrived here, some people weren't sure you'd make it through the program. Not because of your shooting ability, but because of questions about whether you could adapt to our culture." Maria had heard similar doubts throughout her career.
"And now? Now, you're one of the top performers in your class.
You've earned the respect of your instructors and your fellow trainees through performance, not politics." They walked in silence for several minutes, watching the waves crash against the shore. "There's something I want you to know," Williams continued. "Next week, you'll be participating in a live-fire exercise with an actual SEAL team. It's not part of the standard curriculum. It's an opportunity for exceptional trainees to experience real-world operations."
Maria's pulse quickened. A live operation would be the ultimate test of everything she'd learned.
"The team specifically requested you for this mission," Williams added. "They've heard about your performance in training and your previous combat experience."
"What's the mission?" "I can't give you details yet.
But I will tell you that it's a high-risk operation that requires precision shooting under challenging conditions."
"Exactly the kind of mission you'll be doing after you graduate."
As they walked back toward the barracks, Maria felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. After 3 months of intensive training, she was about to face the ultimate test, proving herself on an actual mission with an operational SEAL team. "Get some rest," Williams advised. "Tomorrow begins your final phase of training. And next week, you'll find out if you're ready to be a special operations sniper." That night, Maria lay in her bunk thinking about how far she'd come. 3 months ago, she'd been an Army sniper with excellent technical skills but limited special operations experience. Now, she was on the verge of joining one of the most elite military communities in the world. The physical challenges had been intense, but she'd adapted to maritime operations, advanced weapons systems, and complex tactical scenarios. The mental challenges had been even more demanding, requiring her to develop new levels of situational awareness and decision-making skills. Most importantly, she'd learned to work effectively with teammates who had initially been skeptical of her abilities. Through consistent performance and professionalism, she'd earned their respect and trust. As sleep finally came, Maria dreamed about the unknown mission waiting for her.
Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them.
She'd proven herself in training, earned the respect of her instructors and peers, and demonstrated that she belonged in the world of special operations. The final test was coming, and Maria Santos was ready to meet it.
The next morning brought news that would change everything.
A real-world crisis had developed, and the training exercise had been upgraded to an actual mission. The skills Maria had been learning in the classroom were about to be tested in the most demanding environment possible: combat. Within hours, she'd be boarding a helicopter alongside seasoned SEAL operators, heading toward a situation where her precision shooting might be the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure.
The time for training was over.
The time for proving herself in the real world had begun. The briefing room was filled with tension as Maria Santos listened to the mission details. What had begun as a training exercise had become a real-world emergency. Pirates had seized a commercial vessel off the coast of Somalia, taking the crew hostage and demanding ransom. Intelligence indicated that several Americans were among the hostages. Lieutenant Commander Morrison stood at the front of the room, fully recovered from his wounds in Afghanistan. He'd specifically requested Maria for this mission, despite the fact that she hadn't yet completed her training program.
The merchant vessel Stella Maris was taken 12 hours ago, Morrison explained, pointing to a satellite photograph on the screen. 17 crew members total, including 4 American citizens.
The pirates have moved the ship to a position 20 miles off the Somali coast.
Maria studied the photograph. The vessel was a medium-sized container ship, approximately 400 feet long. Multiple decks provided various positions for both hostages and hostile forces.
Intelligence suggests 8 to 12 pirates aboard, Morrison continued. They're armed with automatic weapons and rocket-propelled grenades. The hostages are being held on the bridge and in the mess hall.
Master Chief Williams, Maria's training instructor, approached her after the briefing. Santos, I want to be clear about something.
You're not officially qualified for this mission yet. You're participating as an observer and backup sniper. Your primary role is to learn and provide support if needed. Maria nodded, but she knew that in special operations, roles could change quickly based on circumstances. If the situation demanded it, she'd be ready to take action. 2 hours later, she found herself aboard a helicopter flying toward the USS Abraham Lincoln, the aircraft carrier that would serve as the mission's staging platform. The flight gave her time to review the intelligence reports and study the target vessel's layout. Sitting across from her was Petty Officer Reynolds, her training partner who'd been selected for the mission team. Their partnership during training had evolved into mutual respect and effective communication.
Nervous? Reynolds asked over the helicopter's noise. Focused, Maria replied. This is what we've been training for.
The helicopter landed on the carrier's deck as the sun was setting. The Lincoln was a massive ship, but it seemed small compared to the vast ocean surrounding it. Maria had never operated from an aircraft carrier before, and the environment was both impressive and intimidating. The mission team assembled in the ship's briefing room for final preparations. Morrison introduced Maria to the other team members, experienced SEAL operators with years of combat experience. She could see some skeptical looks, but she also saw acceptance from those who knew about her performance in Afghanistan. The plan is straightforward, Morrison explained. We approached the target vessel using fast boats under cover of darkness. 2 sniper teams will provide overwatch while the assault team boards and secures the hostages. Maria would be paired with Chief Petty Officer Jackson, one of the most experienced snipers in the SEAL community. Her role was to observe and learn, but also to be ready if additional firepower was needed.
The pirates have night vision equipment, Morrison continued, so we can't rely on darkness for concealment.
This will be a precision operation requiring perfect coordination. As the team prepared their equipment, Maria felt the familiar pre-mission routine calming her nerves.
Weapons inspection, gear check, communications test.
Each step built her confidence and focused her mind on the task ahead. At 2,300 hours, the fast boats launched from the Lincoln's well deck. Maria found herself racing across the dark ocean toward an unknown but dangerous situation. The boat's movement was different from anything she'd experienced in training, requiring constant adjustment to maintain balance and readiness. Through her night vision goggles, she could see the target vessel growing larger as they approached. Lights were visible on the bridge and main deck, suggesting the pirates were maintaining watch positions. 2,000 meters out, Morrison announced over the radio. Sniper teams, prepare for deployment. Maria and Chief Jackson would take position on the second fast boat, providing overwatch for the boarding operation. The boat would maintain position approximately 500 meters from the target vessel, close enough for precise shooting but far enough to avoid detection. As they approached the deployment position, Maria could see figures moving on the target vessel's deck. Through her scope, she counted at least 6 armed individuals in various positions around the ship. Ghost 1, this is actual, Morrison's voice came through her earpiece.
Report target assessment. Chief Jackson was the primary observer for their team. Actual, Ghost 1.
I count 6 tangos visible on deck, 2 on the bridge wing, estimated 4 additional inside the superstructure.
Copy, Ghost 1. Maintain overwatch. Assault team beginning approach.
Maria watched through her scope as the assault team's boat moved closer to the merchant vessel. The SEALs would climb aboard using grappling hooks and ropes, then move systematically through the ship to locate and rescue the hostages. Tango movement, portside, Maria whispered to Jackson. She'd spotted an armed pirate moving toward a position that would allow him to see the approaching assault team. Jackson acquired the target through his scope.
I see him. Range 420 meters. Wind negligible.
You have authorization to engage if he threatens the assault team, Morrison's voice confirmed.
The pirate continued moving, seemingly unaware of the approaching danger.
But, as the assault boat drew closer, he suddenly stopped and raised what appeared to be a radio. He's about to compromise the approach, Maria said urgently.
Take him, Jackson replied.
Maria centered her crosshairs on the target and squeezed the trigger. The suppressed rifle made only a soft coughing sound. Through her scope, she watched the pirate drop silently to the deck.
Good shot, Jackson confirmed. Target down, assault team continues approach.
The SEAL assault team reached the merchant vessel and began boarding. Maria and Jackson maintained overwatch, scanning for additional threats. The ship's complex structure provided numerous hiding places, requiring constant vigilance. Ghost 1, we have movement in the superstructure, Morrison reported.
Multiple tangos moving toward the bridge area.
Through her scope, Maria could see armed figures moving through the ship's interior passages. The assault team was methodically clearing the lower decks, but the pirates appeared to be consolidating their positions around the hostages. Ghost 1, this is Ghost 2, came a transmission from the 2nd Sniper Team.
We have eyes on the bridge.
Estimate 4 tangos plus unknown number of hostages. The situation was becoming complex. Multiple threats in different locations, with hostages scattered throughout the ship. The assault team would need precise fire support to avoid civilian casualties.
Contact. Contact.
Morrison's voice suddenly filled the radio.
We're taking fire from the engine room level.
Ghost teams, we need suppression on the aft superstructure. Maria swung her rifle toward the rear of the ship. She could see muzzle flashes from multiple positions as the pirates engaged the assault team. Jackson was already engaging targets, his rifle firing with methodical precision. Tango, third deck, starboard side, Maria called out, identifying a threat that Jackson hadn't seen. Take him, Jackson replied, focusing on his own targets.
Maria fired, watching the hostile drop.
But more pirates were appearing from concealment, creating a complex engagement with friendly forces and hostages intermixed throughout the target area.
Ghost 1, actual. The hostages on the bridge are in immediate danger.
We need precision fire to neutralize the threats without casualties.
Jackson studied the bridge through his scope. Actual, Ghost 1.
I count 3 tangos on the bridge, but they're using hostages as human shields. No clear shots available. Maria adjusted her position, looking for a different angle. From her position on the boat, she could see partially through the bridge windows. The situation was exactly what they'd trained for, precision shots in a hostage environment. Chief, I might have an angle from this position, she said to Jackson.
Jackson looked through his spotting scope at Maria's line of sight. That's an extremely difficult shot. 400 meters, moving platform, limited visibility, hostages in proximity.
I can make it, Maria said with confidence. Morrison's voice came through the radio again. Ghost 1, the assault team is pinned down.
We need those bridge tangos neutralized immediately.
Jackson made a decision that would define the mission's outcome. Ghost 1 Bravo, you're authorized to engage the bridge targets.
Ghost 1 Alpha will provide backup.
Maria felt the familiar calm that came with critical moments. Through her scope, she could see one of the pirates clearly. He was holding a weapon to a hostage's head, using the person as protection while firing at the assault team. She controlled her breathing, compensated for the boat's movement, and found her target in the crosshairs. The shot required perfect timing to avoid hitting the hostage.
The boat rose on a swell, and Maria fired. The hostile dropped instantly, his weapon falling harmlessly away from the hostage. Jackson immediately engaged a second target, and, within seconds, the bridge was clear of threats. Outstanding shooting. Morrison's voice was filled with relief. Bridge is clear, hostages are safe. Continuing sweep of lower decks. The remainder of the operation proceeded smoothly. With sniper overwatch protecting their movement, the assault team systematically cleared the ship and secured all hostages. The final count was 11 pirates captured, no friendly casualties, and all 17 crew members rescued safely. As the fast boats returned to the Lincoln, Maria felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Her first live mission with a SEAL team had been successful, and she'd proven herself under the most demanding conditions possible. Chief Jackson approached her during the return trip. That bridge shot was exceptional work. 400 meters, moving platform, hostage in proximity. Most experienced snipers wouldn't have attempted it. I had good training, Maria replied. You had good instincts. Training can teach technique, but it can't teach judgment. That shot required perfect judgment. Back aboard the Lincoln, the team conducted a thorough debrief of the operation. Every decision was analyzed, every shot reviewed, every communication examined. Maria's performance was specifically highlighted as critical to the mission's success. Morrison approached her after the debrief. Santos, I have some news. Based on your performance tonight, you're being recommended for immediate graduation from the sniper program. You'll be assigned to my team permanently. Admiral Richardson, who had flown out to the Lincoln specifically for this mission, joined the conversation. Staff Sergeant Santos, your actions tonight exemplify the best traditions of American Special Operations Forces. You demonstrated precision, courage, and exceptional judgment under extreme pressure. Maria stood at attention. Thank you, sir. I was honored to serve with this team. There's one more thing, the Admiral continued. The hostage you saved with that bridge shot was Captain Jennifer Martinez, the ship's master. She's a former Navy officer and specifically asked to meet the sniper who saved her life. Later that evening, Maria was introduced to Captain Martinez in the ship's medical bay. The woman was in her 40s, with graying hair and intelligent eyes that had seen too much of the world's dangers. I wanted to thank you personally, Captain Martinez said, gripping Maria's hand firmly. I was certain I was going to die on that bridge. Then, suddenly, my captor just dropped. I didn't understand what had happened until later. I was just doing my job, ma'am, Maria replied. No, you saved my life with a shot that required incredible skill and courage. I've been sailing for 23 years, and I've never seen anything like what you and your team did tonight. As Maria walked through the carrier's corridors later that evening, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From the doubting SEALs in Afghanistan to her acceptance into the training program, from months of grueling preparation to tonight's successful mission. She'd proven herself not through politics or favoritism, but through performance when lives were on the line. The SEALs who had once questioned whether a woman belonged in special operations now knew that her gender was irrelevant. What mattered was her ability to deliver precise fire when it counted most. In the morning, Maria would begin her official assignment with Morrison's SEAL team. There would be more missions, more challenges, more opportunities to prove herself. But, tonight, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She'd come a long way from the Army sniper who'd provided overwatch in Afghanistan. Through determination, skill, and the support of teammates who'd learned to trust her abilities, she'd earned her place among America's elite warriors. The SEALs no longer whispered about whether she was the famous sniper. They knew exactly who she was, Sergeant First Class Maria Santos, Naval Special Warfare Sniper, and a vital member of their brotherhood. Standing on the carrier's deck, looking out at the endless ocean, Maria thought about the future. There would be more missions, more chances to make a difference, more opportunities to prove that excellence had no gender. She was ready for whatever came next. The young woman who had once faced skepticism and doubt was now a proven special operations warrior. Her rifle had spoken when words weren't enough, and her actions had earned the ultimate respect, trust from her teammates when lives hung in the balance. Maria Santos had found her place in the world, and that place was wherever her skills were needed to bring her fellow warriors home safely. The ocean stretched endlessly before her, full of unknown challenges and opportunities.
But, whatever lay ahead, she would face it with the confidence that came from proven ability and the support of teammates who knew her worth. She was no longer the outsider proving herself. She was a SEAL Team sniper, ready for whatever mission came next.